Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of the PureCloud Community's Q&A show. My name is Matt Lawson. I am your online community manager, and today, a couple of really cool things going on. First of all, brand new segment that we're going to drop. It's called Community Newsflash. The idea being, we want to tell you the top 5 things that you need to know going into this month, being September 2019. Pretty cool, right? We're going to keep it simple and really concentrated so that you know exactly what's important. Another fun thing, we're going to have our regular contributor George on to answer your pressing questions in the PureCloud community. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. George, welcome to the program. It looks like you've been redecorating. Are you getting into the holiday spirit for the coming up season? What's going on?
I am hiding the person behind the person, the puppet master behind the screen, so that nobody out there can see who's actually answering the questions for these videos.
Very nice. I had a feeling all along this was entirely scripted and pre-planned because everything we say is perfect and requires very little editing. Well, while you've been redecorating, some pretty fun stuff has been going on related to the show and the community. First of all, hold your applause. The Q&A show got its very first email, something I'm kind of excited about. And without further ado, let me go ahead and give it a little read. Greg said, I love the Q&A show. It's short enough to watch, but not taking up all of my time. I think there is plenty of room for best practices for new customers. Greg goes on to elaborate. We are in PureCloud. We are learning as we go, and the help files and videos are technically correct, but limited on real-life examples and, more importantly, best practices. What I wanted to do is bring this up because, George, after receiving this email, you and I put our heads together and we thought, yes, there is absolutely room for us to cover best practices, right?
Yeah.
Why wait? Let's go ahead and hop into the Resource Center. For our very first segment on best practices, what topic did you choose?
For this one, I was looking over a number of different posts on community, and I pulled together several that I actually forwarded to you, Matt, as suggestions. But I've seen a common thread fairly recently regarding just the ports and settings that need to be configured for using your firewall, for setting up your session border controller, for phones, what ports they use, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people seem to be asking, okay, what ports do we need to open up? How do we get this thing to work? So one of the things to look at here, we've got a lot of very detailed information on not just the local ports that are used by PureCloud for, say, the client talking to the internet, the PureCloud through the internet connection, or the phones talking to the local edge device, perhaps, things of that nature. But there are also a lot of ports and things to configure regarding what needs to be opened up, just so that your network can communicate with AWS and all the stuff that's out there in the cloud. Because people don't normally think of, oh, well, I've got to open up all these port ranges to be able to let my internal applications talk to the external cloud-based applications that are used with PureCloud. So going on down, there's some general stuff in here. It talks about how to use DNS and NTP, time server, to get your phone set up correctly. You need to make sure that you open up some of the ports so that the edge can talk to the cloud. Because if the edge can't talk to the cloud over the internet, you're not doing much of anything. So transport, got to have that port open there. That's to talk to PureCloud and Amazon AWS. If you have edges in different groups and they need to talk to each other, you need to have that TLS port 8063 open. If you're using WebRTC, you got to have some other ports open, depending on the cloud services, the station trunks, the WebRTC media. For signaling, so UDP, TCP, media settings, all these things need to be opened up on the firewall if you're going to be communicating back and forth external to a local area network. If everything's contained locally on the network, then you just have to make sure that all the devices can communicate on these ports with each other. That said, here's one important thing I want to point out right away. You got the transport/port application for phones, VoIP phones. This is one that's come up several times on the community. Why do we have to open up UDP port 4000 plus, and what the heck does that mean? When we're using SIP signaling, we're just setting up the phone call, and then it establishes this RTP stream, which is the actual sound, the communication that goes back and forth between the phones. That just picks a port between 4,000 and 65,500, whatever the top end is, from the range of ports that are available, because it's randomly picking a port for those streams to go across, for those streams to communicate with for the actual voice traffic. You can change the port that it starts on the trunk settings and on the phone base settings and things like that. But here's what we recommend by default, because this is what our developers actually planned on using for our telephony. So the actual conversation streams, RTP and SRTP, use random ports selected and assigned based on negotiations when a call is being set up using SIP. I know that's probably gibberish to a lot of people, but those who understand it know that that's just standard in voice over IP. So yeah, we look at 4,000 plus. You can change it to whatever range you want, but it's usually best not to mess with it. Your solutions, the IP addresses that need to be set up to talk to, and here's a big one. People always ask, okay, what domains do we need to whitelist? What IP address ranges do we need to whitelist? There's a whole big range for Amazon AWS that needs to be set up for CloudFront, for S3, for other things. We don't even bother to list the IP addresses here because they change from time to time. And that's something people aren't really used to. So you have to actually go to this link here on Amazon's AWS information page to find out what IP address ranges they're currently using for your region. So that, even more fun there. How do I set up my SBC? How do I set up my firewall properly? Well, you need to go and check this and make sure you're in line with what AWS is using. The good thing about it, and here it actually pulls up a list from their page. There is a subscription page for Amazon. I'm sorry, I don't have it handy right here. I didn't get it all ready. But they have a subscription page where they will actually send you notifications when they change those ranges. So you don't have to just fly blind and check every once in a while. They will actually, it's a subscription, you get emails and they'll say, hey, we changed our port ranges. You need to change your firewall settings, for example. New Relic has its own range. So all these things come into play. There are also domains that we work with. So depending on which region you're in, you need to whitelist certain domains to be able to come in or authorize for access on your domain. So mypurecloud.com in North America and so on down the line, Amazon, cloudfront.net and others, Google, all these different domains need to be whitelisted so that proper communication can take place between your local PureCloud clients and entities and the cloud. So just a ton of stuff in here. I know that's a whirlwind tour. I pointed out the main things, but this is something that comes up. I sent you 4 posts and I probably pulled up at least 10 that I saw in the past couple or 3 months that dealt with this. So hopefully that makes some sense.
All right, George. Best practices are behind us. We've learned all we need to know. It's time to get into the hard stuff. It's time for your least favorite segment, my favorite, Stump the Expert.
It's time for Stump the Expert. We love it when questions in the community get great answers, but these questions fell on hard times. No one was able to answer their plea for knowledge. Can our ragtag group of experts provide a helping hand? If not, there's still hope. We'll shuffle the question to our bounty board where community members can saddle up and take their best shot at answering. If they receive the best answer, they can save the day and earn some lucrative GCAP points for doing so. Giddy up!
Aaron writes, good morning. I am trying to bring a group into using emails in PureCloud, and they have asked if there was a way to have emails coming up to customers with a specific email address instead of at caltire.mypurecloud.com. From what I can see, the queue needs an email to be able to use the on behalf of. Is there a setup document or steps in order to make this change? George, it's funny that Aaron asked this because it's something I've had to ask about our own community's vendor. So in the interest of transparency, maybe I was a little selfish in choosing this question, but I'd love to help Aaron out. What do you think? Do you have any advice for her?
The answer to her question is yes.
There is a document out there.
All right, Aaron, I'm sorry. Yeah, there is a bit of information. It depends on how you want to do it, because you can actually use your own domain's email address instead of the @mypurecloud.caltire.com if you want to. There is information in the Resource Center on how to set that up, either through forwarding from your domain. You can set up the correct records in your DNS server to be able to use it. There are a number of different things you can do to set that up so you can use your own domain's email address as the from address. There's also a reply to address that you can set. As you pointed out, those have to exist on the queue. So if you want to avoid using the caltire at the caltire.mypurecloud.com specifically, then you would have to set up some records in DNS to be able to then associate a different type of domain name with your queue and thus use it as the from address as well as the reply to address. But that stuff is in the Resource Center, and there are actually 2 or 3 threads on community. Search for emails, search for Lucia De Cristofaro, Lucia, Lucie. She's answered a number of questions on how to do that. So there are a few threads on it already. And give that a look, Aaron. If you need more help, just go ahead and give me a shout and I'll point you to them. Using our own domain name with redirect to PureCloud would be part of it, yeah. Or set up custom mail from configuration would be the main one.
All right.
Thinking.
Cool.
That one, there's the thread on community right there. That was one that would give a lot of good pointers. And then the second one, set up custom mail. That would help as well.
All right, awesome. We'll make sure Aaron receives some of these suggestions. George, I didn't stump you on that one. Let's go ahead and try with question number 2. Sven wants to know about generating custom action authorization codes. He writes, I need to dynamically generate an authorization code in order to authenticate my custom action for submitting a card transaction. The code needs to combine a set of fields, among them the current date in an HMAC SHA-256 signature that is base 64 encoded. Here are the specs if anyone's interested. I was looking at the documentation for something similar, but it does not go far enough. 2 questions remain. How to encode the HMAC and how to include the current timestamp in the signature. Any insight would be much appreciated. George, do you have any insight that Sven might appreciate?
I can't think of anything that I'd be able to contribute, really. I could go back and I could look at some of the stuff and come up with an answer, but no, I'm going to say I'm stumped on that one because I just don't have enough information at my fingertips to be able to answer that.
All right, everybody, you heard it here first. I think this is maybe one of the first official times that George has been stumped on a question that didn't require a feature to come out or something similar. So put it on the bounty board. George has been stumped. And what that means is you all now have the chance to go in and help Sven and return some lucrative GCAP points in the process. So take your best shot. Maybe you can be someone's hero, if only for one day. All right, George, I'm really happy we finally stumped you. That's kind of been a personal mission of mine for an embarrassing amount of time. George, we have another one coming in from a longtime contributor, a power user in the community, and a GCAP member. I'm talking about none other than our very own personal hero, Darren Chang. Darren wants to know about what ways do your orgs use to combat duplicate contacts on a contact list using campaigns? While our org operates and can wash data vigorously to ensure each contact is unique, we do find crossover occurring. Would you think creating a second DNC file and adding that to the campaign to do a check against the actual contact list being dialed would be a temporary solution? Looking for your thoughts and ideas on how to combat this in a more efficient way and reduce the risk of becoming a nuisance to customers with repeat calls. Cheers. What do you think? George, any advice for our friend Darren?
One of the main things is obviously getting the right data into the contact list to begin with. So scrubbing your CSV lists well before you actually import them into the campaign. The main thing that I've seen people do is use the main contact phone number as the contact ID column for the campaign so that you make sure that you have unique entries for all of the contacts. And that way, if you try to import 2 contacts with the exact same phone number, it's going to throw an error saying, hey, sorry, you've already got 1 contact with that ID. You can't have 2. So that'd be my first recommendation is when you're importing, make sure the first column or the column that has the main phone number in it, designated as the primary ID for that contact. The idea for using 2 DNC lists, I really wouldn't go that route. DNC lists get kind of hairy. You really want to keep them clean for people who really just said they don't want to be called. Yes, you could theoretically, as soon as you call, add somebody's phone number to the DNC list for that campaign using the wrap-up code and a wrap-up rule, but I don't think that's recommended. That would not be a best practice. So yeah, here I'm looking at the campaign management side, list management specifically. If I'm going to create a new list, I can upload a contact list. I have to go find one. But under the advanced, you'll notice here I've got the phone number column, business cell, whatever for each contact. So for the unique identifier column, I could choose that phone number as being the unique identifier for each contact. And that way, if I try to import records where there are multiples with the exact same phone number in that first column, it'll throw an error saying, sorry, you can't do that. So a lot of people will use that phone number as a unique identifier to prevent duplicates, if that makes sense. The other thing you can do is you can take your whole contact list, export it, scrub it to make sure no duplicates, and then re-import it as a brand new list. But that's also cumbersome and tiresome. So those are my main 2 ideas.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for the unexpected walkthrough. We appreciate that, and I'm sure Darren does also. As always, ping us in the community if you have any follow-up questions. George, honestly, I was hoping we could get a few more questions in, but I think we are about out of time because while you sign off, Captain, I have to carry on and introduce a new segment in the show. It's called Community Newsflash. George, I can't thank you enough for your time. Have a great week. I'll see you on the next one. All right, time for that new segment I talked about at the top of the show, Community Newsflash. The idea being we're going to give you the top 5 things you need to know going into this month, being September 2019. So let's get started. All right, coming in hot at number 5, Children Against Hunger. In case you haven't heard on our social media channels, Genesys offices across the states banded together to pack meals for the Hurricane Dorian relief. In the Indiana office alone, 87,000 meals were packed. In the Raleigh office, another 30,000 meals were packed. Numbers are still coming in from the California office, but it was great to be able to participate in this event, and we were really thrilled to be able to help the Bahamas and hopefully get them some tasty meal as they recover from Hurricane Dorian. All right, number 4, something for all you product nuts out there. PureCloud embeddable framework for private APIs. If you follow the release notes, you'll know a little bit about this, but this feature enables a version of PureCloud's contact center services inside your own system and tools. So key agent features like status management, click to dial, click to email, interaction handling, and call logging are handled by the PureCloud client, saving developers from having to rebuild standard call center functionality in their own applications. What could be better than that? Go to the library entry of this episode to learn more if you need some additional information, and always feel free to ask questions in the community. All right. Coming down the track, number 3, we have Architect Web Chat Flows. This is now available, so was the previous one that I mentioned. With this one, you get advanced routing capabilities for inbound chat messages, providing a better customer experience for those customers who prefer chat over voice. So be sure to read more about that and enable it at your earliest convenience. Number 2, this may not be number 1 on our list, but it's really a big one for the community. We are so excited to be releasing our next series of badges. We're calling it Memento. And the great thing is we want you to participate in helping us name our poll badge. See what we did there? We have a poll to help us name our poll badge. Well, the great news is, even if you don't think it's funny, you can earn a badge simply by participating in this poll. So don't wait, go ahead and cast your vote today. There are a lot of fun options to choose from. All right, number 1, with the bullet, we have our friend Becky to give a little bit more information, but let me set the stage because this was a really big release that a lot of people are excited about. You probably saw it coming. I'm talking about, of course, the Amazon Lex Bot. Just a little bit of information before we go into a demo. Using the same technology that powers Amazon Alexa, the Lex Bot integration obtains information from a customer, interprets that customer's intent, And then using the PureCloud Architect flows, it can either provide assistance directly or route the call or message to an agent. Pretty cool, right? For a little bit, actually not for a little bit, for a demo of this, we're going to go to our old friend of the show, Becky, who's going to be able to do a detailed walkthrough.
Matt, I know you're a fan of a cold beverage at the end of the day, and I'm sure it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So what better way to showcase this integration than to build a bot that helps you order a nice frosty beverage at the end of a long day? First, we're going to set up the Amazon Lex bot. Let's call him Pure Tender. He's going to use natural language understanding to identify when a customer wants to order a beverage and guide the customer accordingly. I built this Lex bot with 0 programming skills in my AWS account. Here's what it looks like. I added a sampling of phrases that signal to Pure Tender that a customer would like to order a beer. I want a Pilsner. Can I order a beer? I need a drink. I need a beer. I then filled the slots, which is the information that a customer must provide to complete their order, along with optional responses and synonyms to those responses. Now I'll show you how I set up my inbound chat flow in PureCloud. I've launched Architect and built a flow. You can see the chat agent greeting that I'm going to present, and you can see the task element that invokes the chatbot, as well as the responses to the customer to obtain, confirm, and place the beer order, as well as a step to transfer the chat to a queue if my bot doesn't understand what the customer is asking for. I can use the PureCloud dev tools to get a preview of what my chat flow will look like. And hey, here's the chat flow we just built. I'm your virtual bartender in Pure Tender. Can I get you a beer? I would like a brown ale, because that's what I'm thirsty for. Perfect. The chatbot understood my request. What size beer do you want today? Oh, I want a big one. Large. Who is this order for? Well, it's for Becky Powell. Confirmation. Would you like me to place an order for this ale? Yes. Perfect, my order's been placed. I'll be getting my beer soon, so I'll hand it back to you now, Matt. Thanks, bye.
Wow, Becky, that was amazing. And I know when you and I caught up in the break room, even you were amazed that you could build this bot in around 30 minutes, I think is what you said it took you. So for everybody who's listening, we really encourage you to explore this feature. Becky was explaining to me how easy and simple it was to get started. So we hope you have the same success. And if you don't, feel free to drop a question in the community. That does it for this week. Thank you to George. Thank you to Becky. Thank you all for listening. Feel free to email us with any thoughts, ideas, icebreakers, best practices, or whatever you may want to see. And I will catch you in the next episode. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. We hope it was helpful and maybe a little bit entertaining. Each week, our hosts and experts review community discussions and debate what content to discuss, so your voice matters. Do we miss something? Do you have a question for the show? Let us know. Join the conversation at the Genesys online community. As a Genesys customer or partner, you can create an account. Just click the sign in button found on most pages and follow the necessary instructions to create an account. Also, feel free to email us at qashow@genesys.com. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first episode, welcome. You can view our entire archives. Go to the helpful links panel found on most community pages and find the QA Show archive that interests you. We appreciate your support of the show and the community. Cheers!